Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to everyone across Australia who's joining us for this special edition of Support Act's Mental Health and Wellbeing Workshop Series on My Mind. Today, titled Navigating Life Online, Social Media, Identity and Wellbeing. My name is Luke O'Connor and I'm the Industry Relations and Partnerships Manager at Support Act, and it's my privilege to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm joining you from today, which is the country of the Cubby Cubby people, to whom I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Before I throw to today's fantastic host, Julia Zamiro, I'd like to take a moment for all of us to acknowledge that these are very challenging times. Support Act is experiencing unprecedented demand due to the pandemic, and we're all doing it pretty tough. And I just want to remind all participants in today's discussion to be respectful of one another and remember that this is a valuable discussion and that this is a really challenging time for all involved. If you need support with your mental health or well-being and you work in the arts, particularly in the music industry, please call the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline on 1-800-959-500. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it can respond to a range of concerns from acute mental health issues all the way to financial counselling and everything in between. So please reach out to that service. If you are a musician, artist manager, crew or music worker, or work in the performing arts, Support Act's COVID-19 Crisis Relief Program is available for financial support. If you go to supportact.org.au, you can find out all of the information you require about those crisis relief programs, and more information in our mental health resource page about how you can look after your mental health and wellbeing whilst pursuing a career in music. All right, and lastly, thanks to the Australian Government through the Office for the Arts for all of their support of that programming. That's enough for me, that's enough ads. Over to you, Julia Zamiro. I think you're on mute, Julia.
I'm a professional.
Over to you,
I'm a
Julia
professional
Zamiro.
performer. That's correct. I've been working in performance for many years. I mean, this is the thing. Hello, this is Julia Zamiro calling from Gundungurra country here in New South Wales, in the Southern Highlands. And yes, that's just another example of all the other things on top of what we have to do in sort of looking after ourselves on social media. We have to do our own lighting, our own sound, and then press our own buttons. And what a journey it's been. Good grief. Look, swapping the sticky carpet of the Esplanade Hotel where we used to film Rock Was to Be here with you via the screen. And we want to welcome you to this special edition of Support Act's On My Mind workshop series. It's an event that we put together. It's been put together by the music industry working group to support those artists and managers experiencing increased levels of abuse on social media as a result of the #vaccination campaign, but also how to discuss how to maintain a positive mental health online generally. Now, whether we like it or not, this industry relies heavily on social media to build audiences, share content, promote events, and of course, connect with fans. And it is a constant. And we need to keep developing a relationship with it that's healthy, mindful, empowered, and knowing full well that it keeps evolving and it will keep changing over time. So this certainly won't be the last of these. And we want to give you some insights into other people's experiences online and of that abuse, and provide some tools for you to maybe be able to better manage that abuse and to protect your well-being while you're interacting online. The goal, of course, is always sharing of information and being together in this. But to give you an update on the vaccination campaign, we're thrilled that Jackie Antas from Asia Pacific at Live Nation Entertainment, the Vice President of Communications, is joining us. And so is Samantha Clode, Communications Director for Frontier Touring and Mushroom Group. Jackie, maybe first to you. Hi.
Thanks, Julia, and hello, everyone. Huge thanks to Support Act and all the panellists today for jumping on to do this really worthy panel on behalf of the Live Alliance and the vaccination campaign. We're truly grateful. I don't think I need to go into too much detail. Vaccination has been absolutely everywhere, and we couldn't have done it without the support of everyone on this call. It is a collective effort of more than 400 of Australia's biggest artists, performers, leading tour promoters, record labels, festivals, venues, ticketing agencies, comedy, theatre companies, streaming platforms, industry peak bodies and associations, with a very simple message. We need to get Australians vaccinated so we can return to the magic of live events. We need to help really, pardon the pun, move the needle and help achieve that 70 to 80% target for vaccine rates. It's all come together extremely quickly, and we're in the second week of the campaign. I'm sure you've seen it all over the press. We've hit some really, really impressive targets. There's more than 250,000 views of the main ad, the TVC. And if you haven't seen it, it's a beautiful ad which was created by the team at Mushroom Creative House in association with Good One Agency and the advertising guru Russell Howcroft. Soundtrack to our iconic Australian hit by Powderfinger, My Happiness, showing beautiful scenes of live imagery getting rudely interrupted by interruptions. Lockdowns, which some of us are still experiencing, and big shout out and strength to all of you who are currently in a lockdown situation. It's had the support of all mainstream media, and we have been working with some really incredible agencies, aka and Bolster, to deliver huge above the line and below the line campaigns. Without any further ado, I'll pass over to Sam here, who has been working around the clock and tirelessly to coordinate all of the artist involvement. And truly, from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of everyone's heart, without artist involvement, we couldn't have got the campaign to the level where it is today. And we truly thank you. And we're here to support you in any way, shape or form.
Hi everybody, and thanks Jackie. Thank you for that. It's nice to have this call today. And yeah, basically as Jackie said, we are ridiculously grateful. Without the artists speaking out, the whole purpose of this campaign, of course, is to encourage people to get vaccinated. And unless artists speak out, that message just doesn't get anywhere. So we have at the moment, as of today, we have 243 names on board, just for the artists. That doesn't include obviously the organisations, which is pretty incredible. I mean, we have literally everybody from Peter Garrett and country legends like John Williamson to we have Dr. Matt Agnew from The Bachelor. He came on board yesterday, and Dicko, and we have such a wide range of artists and performers and personalities, and it's growing by the day. Hopefully we can even increase that again. So in terms of all those people who went out last Monday, I think it was a resounding success in the sense that we really flooded media and social media with this singular message, encouraging people to get vaccinated. Looking at who's posted, we're still waiting for about 40% of people to post about the campaign. And obviously, I think one of the things maybe people are feeling, artists are feeling, is that nervousness about what's going to happen on social media when we do, which is why this call hopefully will be helpful. But it's really important that I think artists realise that how powerful and important your voice is and your message is. I think obviously the experts will talk a bit more about this, but one thing that we're seeing through the stats, through the marketing and the social media is that a positive sentiment, the likes, the positivity coming from the campaign far, far, far outweighs any negative comments that artists are seeing. And even on the day that they were posting, people were coming out of the woodwork, don't tell me what to do, can't believe you're posting this. And by a day or two later, that had all disappeared. A lot of those commenters were the same people targeting different artists in quite a purposeful way, and they're not actually followers of the artists. I think Tom Gleeson did a really great update on his socials at the end of last Monday, where he has about 123,000 followers, and he did a great little message saying, I spent all day being told off by anti-vaxxers and I still have 123,000 followers. I'm starting to think they're not fans. And that's very correct. We're noticing that a lot of people who are complaining aren't serious fans. And the positive, like I said, the positive likes are far outweighing. I'm also organising a lot of the media that we're doing at the moment, which you've seen a lot of, and a big thank you to all the artists that have taken part and done interviews and things so far. There's been a lot happening. A great highlight we had just on Monday night was Gordy on Have You Been Paying Attention, who was great, little quiz master happening there. She talked it up. We've had everything from Courtney Act talking to Triple M this morning. Ben Lee's done lots of press. People like Diesel chatting to TV. The Rubens getting up at 6:30 a.m. to do the weather crosses. There's been lots of people speaking, and hopefully there'll be lots more to come. We do have sort of, if anyone needs some sort of talking points that they want tips, for instance, when they're going to post, if they want sort of actual sort of settings tips for how you can monitor your Facebook, we have some resources there that you can get in touch and we can send out to as well. But I think that the most important thing is to be really clear about what the campaign message is. It isn't us saying we are trying to create vaccine passports for all shows. It's not us saying every single Australian has to be vaccinated. And some of those messages, I think, have been a bit diluted in the media this week. I think it's worth probably acknowledging the Guy Sebastian fallout. Obviously, Guy sort of backtracked a little bit on his support, but it's really important to note that his actions speak louder than words. He's double vaccinated. He supports vaccination. He's obviously just felt the pressure of, understandably, being a very public figure, speaking out, dealing with the backlash. Hadn't seen the post first, so I think probably deserve a little bbit of gentleness in terms of how that went down, but it did create more publicity for the campaign, really. He's, like I said, his actions speak louder word. He's vaccinated. He does believe in it. So anyone has questions about that stuff can feel free to ask. Anything more that artists want to do, feel free to let me know, and I'll go back to Julia now.
Look at me, I'm learning. Thank you, Jackie and Samantha. Thank you for joining us. And let's meet this terrific panel of guests that we've got. We've got Ash King, who is a content manager for creative psychology practice, the Indigo Project. She's a mental health educator with Support Act and undertaking a PhD in her spare time. I mean, well played. With the Cyber Psychology Research Group at the University of Sydney. Well done. Hello, Ash.
Hi, Julia. Great to be here and great to be with everyone today.
Ginger Gorman, what a delight, is joining us. She's an international cyber hate expert. Well, you are very welcome here. And author of the best-selling book, Troll Hunting. How are you, Ginger?
Hello, it is lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure. Mitch Tambo, proud Gamilla man, singer, performer, dig player, also someone who has completed a Bachelor of Social Work in 2014 and is co-founder of True Culture, an Aboriginal-owned business empowering and engaging people through Aboriginal culture. Hi, Mitch.
Yama yama.
And finally, the delightful Alex Leahy, or she's Alexandra on the Wikipedia, but we got better information than that. An artist, a songwriter, and producer from Melbourne who, along with continuing to release and navigate an ever-changing landscape, has caused a terrific stir during these COVID times with her open letters to the Premier of Victoria and the Prime Minister of Australia. Hello to you, Alex.
Hey, Julia. Hey, everyone. It's great to be here.
On behalf of Support Act, thank you so much for all being here. Now, to you all at home listening, if you've got any questions, we will be asking them at the end of the talk, so please send them through. And also, there will be candid conversation about mental health, and we want people to feel comfortable around that. If the content does bring anything up, please reach out to Support Act Wellbeing Helpline, Beyond Blue and Lifeline, and the numbers are at the top of the chat if you do need them. Before we begin, I just wanted to get, in a couple of minutes from each of you, your experience of online abuse that you might have experienced before we go to Ash, who will be giving us a presentation on her work, and we'll be, talking to that, and people will pitch in with that as well. But if I can start with you, Ginger, what's your online abuse experience been?
Thank you. I just want to say I'm on Ngunnawal land in Canberra. We are locked down, and I just want to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people's strong tradition of storytelling, and also say congratulations on the amazing campaign. So I never meant to become a cyber hate expert. Back in 2013, I was working for the ABC and had done for many years. And essentially, because of something I had written and broadcast on the ABC, my family and I became subject of an orchestrated online hate campaign. So we were really hunted online, and at its very peak, we got death threats, and I was really worried about the safety of my kids. So that was the starting point for all of this. And I suppose journos are very much like artists and singers and poets, and in the sense that we have to be online. So it's not really a choice. At that point in my career, nobody knew what to do. When my bosses at the ABC had no idea, they told me to ring the employee assistance line. And I remember thinking when my boss said that, like, no, you fuckwit, I want to know if someone's going to kill my children. I don't need a psychologist. And the police also didn't know what to do. So that has led me into quite an extraordinary journey over the last 8 years when things started to calm down. I really wanted to know, like, why would you send someone you don't know a death threat? And it was starting to happen to pretty much any woman I could see in a public position anywhere in the world, like especially women in public positions. So I went deep into the world of predator trolling, and it was a lot darker and more violent and more dangerous than I could have imagined. My book, Troll Hunting, came out in 2019, right before the Christchurch massacre. And because of what was in the book, I ended up getting flown to New Zealand to explain what had happened, and also flown later to Norway when something quite similar was planned for that country. So yeah, it's ended up being a long and very strange journey, and a lot darker than I could have imagined.
Honestly, thank you, Ginger. Alex, what about you? What have you experienced?
Oh, look, I haven't experienced anything to the extent that Ginger has just mentioned. Like, that's seriously scary shit. And yeah, I'm very fortunate to not have had to sort of face that. But, you know, especially in the last couple of years with the pandemic, I feel that it's given so much more power to online avenues in communicating with people. It's kind of been all we've had for the majority of this time. And, you know, with this sort of faceless way of communicating, it's very easy for people to take advantage of that and feel empowered, and have agency to be quite nasty and to be bullies and to be quite abusive. In the mild cases that I've experienced, the majority of them have been in response to my open letters to the government over the course of the pandemic. And generally those responses are quite misinformed, politically charged and aggressive. You know, a lot of people throwing information at me about me that isn't true, things about my income, about my way of life, about my views and about my agenda. And it's this sort of misinformation that, like, is not only about myself, but is also about, like, I would actually say, like, the devaluing of, or I guess, like, the real life raw perception of women, unfortunately, in our society, and also a lack of understanding and appreciation for working in the arts as well, has really sort of bubbled to the top in that kind of discourse. So it's been quite disappointing to see. But as Jackie and Sam were saying before, like, I think the other thing that I've found is that those people who come with those remarks are not fans of mine. You know, they never were. It's not like I've changed their mind or something like that. They're actively seeking out this kind of discussion. And that's kind of the scariest thing, like, that people have this sort of aggression in them and they're actually looking for ways to let it out. And to be, you know, a young woman trying to do my thing and being the target of vitriol, that's pretty scary stuff.
Thanks, Alex. Mitch, over to you. What have you experienced online?
Yeah, just being trolled, you know, to the nth degree. I feel like, you know, you can prepare yourself mentally as much as possible, as much as you want, but the minute you step into the mainstream platform and have a voice and have a story that doesn't coincide with the, you know, stereotypical narrative, you're in for a ride. And I've been on one heck of a ride. Knocked me for six for a while there. Brought up a lot of transgenerational trauma in me and ramped up anxieties and things like that. And just really had to learn to navigate it and try and get comfortable with it. But I don't think it's something I'll ever get comfortable with, but just be able to acknowledge that it's a part of the journey and learn to move through it quicker rather than get stuck in it. And I think it's because, obviously you go on stage and you have your stage energy, but my whole message and what I put out there is how I live my life. It's not just like a thing to trigger people or something I think is going to help me accelerate my career. It's actually me sharing with the world who I actually am. So, when I do get a lot of these comments, it's hard to sort of brush it off because it's targeted at me as who I am as a person and my spirit. And I mean, often or not, it's all geared towards how I look and just pulling me apart. If it's not my traditional headdress, it's my skin color, it's my features, it's the way I talk. I think because for a lot of it is I'm the complete opposite of what the majority has been fed a blackfellow should look like and how they should act and appear, and certainly what they should represent. I'm out here representing unity and togetherness and healing as a collective, which not everyone's for. And so it subjected me to a lot. I mean, to the nth degree. I mean, digging up my deceased dad. Like, it goes on, the amount of rubbish that's been pulled up on community platforms about me. Even from family members I've never met. Like, I've never met them in my life, having commentary on my life and who I am and what's to be true and not true and all the rest of it. So it's been a pretty rude shock. But I guess out of it, what I established quickly is those that I could trust and those that were for me. And that's just a very small circle. And I held tight in that. And those that I guess have integrity and have decided to step up and be true to their word, the things that they've spoke to me as a kid and so on and so forth, and have stood up when times have been tough, and I've been able to lean on them, mob from my community and all the rest of it. So I guess that's kind of briefly been my journey.
Thanks, Mitch. It's that combination, isn't it, of public life and then this added layer that's come on recently in this, what we're talking about in terms of how we're going to move forward in terms of being able to get back to doing shows if there is no vaccination, if people aren't vaccinated. As an older performer, I'm 54, I was dragged into having to join social media in 2015, Twitter first for Eurovision, because Guy Sebastian was representing Australia. And then Instagram only 2 years ago for the Adelaide Cabaret Festival. And I was well known before. I didn't need it to get fans. Maintain them maybe. And I've had my share, but it's not been awful. And I know I'm very lucky and privileged in that way. But again, I see why it's useful as a tool, but I didn't want to do it. I was asked to join it and, well, forced to by publicity as well. Ash, over to you. This is an area of expertise for you. Let's have a look at your presentation and we'll come in and out of it as we go along, and you move us on to the next point because you know what you've got going in there. So over to you, Ash.
Absolutely. Thanks, Julia. And thank you everybody for sharing your experiences. It's quite interesting how I kind of got into this area of research myself. Around the time I finished high school, I created a video that went viral on YouTube overnight and copped a whole lot of really nasty abuse. And that was kind of my first taste of, wow, people on the internet can be really horrible. And I knew that I wanted to do something in the future which would involve me being connected with social media. Ended up being in a cover band for almost 10 years. We did TV appearances. And again, this is like small fry stuff, but we had, I had people sliding into my DMs saying really, really horrible stuff. And so at that point, I was like, I wonder if I can find out how to not be upset by what people have to say about me on the internet, or is there anything I can do or say so that people won't say nasty things about me. And I think that that's what kind of got me into researching online behavior, how we show up online. Can we be authentically ourselves online, or should we put up a front so that we're protecting ourselves? So we're going to be exploring a little bit of that today. And of course, I'm going to be joined by some amazing guests with their own lived experience and expertise. But what I wanted to kick off with first was understanding why criticism and rejection hurt so much. So what is it about us that gets so affected and impacted by people saying nasty things, and why that's really human? We're also going to chat about how we can bring our online selves in line with our values and priorities and the things that we consider important. And we're also going to click. We're going to talk about how to respond to online nastiness, PowerPoint just doing its thing, without devolving into a shattered mess. And finally, chatting about the importance of developing a strong, embodied self outside of the digital space, which is absolutely essential to being able to navigate life online in a really mindful and healthy and connected way. All right, so let's ask, why do rejection and criticism hurt? I always thought that rejection and criticism hurt me in particular when I was growing up a lot and when I was on social media, because I was like a real sensitive person. I always thought, you just need to harden up. You need to do better, get stronger so that this stuff won't affect you. However, in my studies of becoming a psychologist, I've learned that criticism and rejection hurt literally. They fire up the parts of our brains that make us feel like we've been injured. And that's because our brains are wired for social connection. So acceptance and belonging was key to our survival in early tribal communities. When we were rejected and excluded back then, it could literally mean death. So now our brains are kind of hyper vigilant to pick up on any indication that we might be rejected or be criticized, thrown out of our communities, and our brain alarms will go off and be like, that's a threat, you're in danger, you're in danger. So it's actually really, really human to be emotionally impacted when we receive criticism. Also, for those of us working and living in the arts, we're also conditioned to receive approval and praise. Approval and praise are sometimes some of the tasty nuggets that have, led us to get into these industries. So this is what we kind of are always hoping for. It's our desired outcome rather than just like a sweet bonus on top. And I think that it's also worth saying here that we can't please everyone. So we can't avoid rejection and criticism, particularly online, because the scope of the audience is so, so vast. People are going to have a range of opinions, and it's definitely possible and probable that some people who connect with your art might not connect with your alignment on other issues. And that's okay too. You should still feel like you have the power and ability to speak up about the things that are important to you. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into that too. So just finishing this slide off, criticism and rejection trigger primal emotional responses. We're going to feel hurt when this stuff is happening. And I'm just talking about, casual online criticism. We're not even getting into the full scale of, cyberbullying and abuse. I'll throw it back to you, Julia.
Yeah, it's interesting, that idea too of the difference between criticism and feedback. I don't necessarily go online to get feedback from people. They're going to give it to you anyway. But, and as a trained actor, you're always, when you're directed by someone, that's what notes are. When you get notes at the end of the show, they're saying that worked or that didn't work. What are your reflections on that, Ginger?
I really agree with the stuff that Ash was talking about, just in regard to the way that our brains are wired. There's a piece of research in my book which answers the question of why, when someone's saying something awful about you, you can't look away. People always say, just turn your phone off, and you actually can't. And it's because it's like somebody is talking about you in the corner at the party. You want to know what they've got to say, regardless of whether it's good or bad. So it's actually not that fair to say to people, just turn off your phone, because you have to know. But we also do need to understand that, as Ash said, not everyone is going to love us. And, the other thing is the criticism doesn't come out equally. So as Mitch kind of indicated, like, people of color, women, there are certain groups of people that get attacked more online. And so I think in terms of psychological armor, that's really important for people to know when they go online. Like if you are in a marginalized group, unfortunately, you are going to get attacked more. And you need to be asking yourself before you go into those spaces, how am I going to cope with it?
Let's move on to the next bit, Ash, because I think we really want to get into the idea of what to do around this issue of particularly the fact the topic here is not your general kind of abuse online, which anybody can get, but around this vaccination issue, you know, this idea that a lot of artists this week are dealing with anti-vaxxers, not just spewing negative vibes, but importantly posting false information. And so, you know, that's the other layer that someone has to sort of deal with as being an expert, as being someone who's, you know, got their own opinion. And there's Guy who actually has had the double vaccination, having to kind of manage that as well. So
that really nicely sort of brings us into this sort of next idea of understanding who we are, what we want to stand up for, what's important to us, and how we, you know, can come through with that in online spaces. And this is sort of something that we refer to as a digital identity. So just like Ginger mentioned, you know, like when you are online and it's hard to look away from things that are nasty, we don't just switch off, because we recognize that our digital life and our embodied life are connected. They are reflections of the real you, and they're part of you that is sort of existing out there in the world somewhere. So, you know, I'm not really one to say, you know, just turn off your screen and walk away. This is going to be impacting you emotionally. It's also a way that you connect with your community. It's also a way that you share your art, you share your craft. So we need to be existing in these digital spaces. So research and a lot of the stuff that I look into is about authentic online self-presentation, and how when we are able to show up online authentically, it's actually related to higher self-esteem. And that's where we can start to look at this current issue of having, you know, anti-vaxxers coming on and sharing their truth, I suppose, is them, I guess, you know, living their, you know, saying their authentic truth. However, we know that a lot of that is, you know, consumed by algorithms, sending them down rabbit holes, taking in all of this sort of fake news and misinformation. However, we can be propped up with, you know, science and evidence and research to be able to stand by our truth, stand by our authenticity, and speak up for things that we find important, which are, you know, like this vaccination campaign, how it's important to get everyone vaccinated if this industry is going to be coming back. So I would ask, you know, what do you post and share, and is it in line with what you find important? And are you clear on your values and priorities, and how does the content that you share align with those? So I think as well, it's also worth mentioning that, you know, we don't need to share everything, and you don't need to justify everything that you share and post. I think that there's a lot of you know, people jumping online arguing about, you know, accountability, and they want to hear, you know, all of your processes to, you know, why are you sharing this, and what are you sharing this about? I think that we need to remember that we can show up online authentically without having to over explain ourselves, and sometimes it's worth just being aware of the overshare as well.
Alex, did you post the vaccination post, and what sort of feedback did you get?
Yeah, I did post the vaccination post, and, you know, it was met with really positive feedback. I think in the case of my audience, it's very much preaching to the converted. You know, but I did see what happened with Guy Sebastian, and I do, in a way, sympathize with him. You know, I think that, first of all, he was probably poorly advised as to how to go about the situation. But I also understand the fear that he would have had. You know, I think that there's a chance that his fear would have been rooted in the fact that he was worried about losing fans or something, you know, sort of, as, I guess, like foundational as that. But for all we know, maybe he was having similar experiences to Ginger in that his family were being targeted, or they were making threats about his children, and then your real primal instincts and protective instincts kick in, and you want to have something to say about it. But I think for myself personally, like, I think social media gives people like a great opportunity to have a platform to talk about things that they believe in and get political and sort of, talk about issues that really matter to them. But for me, like, as someone who actually doesn't enjoy interacting with social media all that much, I just like to have fun with it. So I think that, like, by having fun with it, then when I do actually talk about something a bit more serious, there is like, it's almost like, oh, like, what has she got to say? Because this is a little bit unusual. But thankfully, like, I keep a pretty, I think, open-minded audience, and I think I share a lot of the same beliefs with people who interact with my music. So luckily I wasn't met with, there were maybe 1 or 2 comments, but other than that, not too much, pushback, although my friend Oscar in the band Holy Holy did pull together, he found a profile on Instagram that had pulled together a list of every single artist that had backed the campaign or has given pro-vax rhetoric in their output, and has said, don't listen to these morons, which I thought was, to be honest, I thought that was pretty funny that they went through so much time to pull that together. But like, it's pretty crazy that sort of stuff happens. And, I was definitely on that list along with a lot of my mates. So, yeah.
And again, that's what freaks people out, isn't it? And you might not realise is that's just maybe a very small percentage who'll see that. You're not sure, will they react to it? But when you see that name on that list, it's terrifying. It must be terrifying. Mitch, did you post the vaccination post, and did you get any feedback from it? Turn you up. You're muted. Same as me.
No, I didn't post it. No.
And was there a reason for that?
Yeah, I just, for me, it's a personal choice. I'm definitely not. I'm not anti, and I'm just for choice. And from my point of view, just from my perspective, just for me as a singular person, I just don't feel like I want to be accountable for pushing someone down a certain way to make health choices for their life. And that's just my opinion. So I just have decided to sort of opt out of the whole conversation. And that's really it. Just because I don't really want to be accountable if someone did go just because of my word, like they're a follower of mine and they trust and value what I have to say. And just say, for example, they just had an allergic reaction. I just don't want that accountability. So I've just chosen to stay out of it. And really, if people talk to me about it, encourage them to go see their doctor and have that conversation. Like I said, I'm not anti. I'd rather people go and speak to their doctor and get advised by a clinician and go and do what they need to do.
I posted the vaccination, and what happened with me was that a young woman commented on it and didn't want to be told what to do, and that's fine. But then someone else who I know stepped in to defend me, and that turned into a whole sort of story that just did not need to have gone that way, where they were antagonising each other at that point. And it's very interesting because I'm still really new to it, and I still get old person amazed by what happens out there, where, I do, because I think you get to watch it in real time. I tend to post something and walk away. I'm not looking for people's reactions that much because, I'll get that, because I sort of don't want the extra kind of stuff, really. Okay, Ash, what's next?
All right. So I thought that I'd chuck this interesting little visual up as well. This is actually from the World Health Organization, and this is just something quick for anyone who's going, well, how do I talk? How do I have debates or discussions with people who show up on my feeds trying to discuss this idea of vaccinations? And what I will direct your attention to is the center of this circle, which is the vocal vaccine deniers, the people who are jumping on your feeds and jumping in the comments like this, telling you that they're not going to get vaccinated and that you shouldn't be telling people to get vaccinated and no one should get vaccinated. The probability of changing those people's minds, very low to zero. So you should not take this upon yourself to make it a mission to change everybody's minds. This vaccination campaign is for the general public. It's not directed at vaccine deniers or anti-vaxxers. And that sort of small demographic, I know they're loud, but they're small, are going to be noisy and are going to have their voices heard. So I think when we can recognize this, we can, collectively take a breath out and go, okay, it's not my job to be an expert on this. It's not my job to convince someone or try to change their mind or try to justify my own opinion. Our social media channels and networks are there for us to stand up and express ourselves as we need and as we wish. So I think that, taking that pressure off, not making yourself responsible.
Ash, can I just jump in there and say, oftentimes predator trolls don't even believe what they're saying. What they're doing is throwing a massive Molotov cocktail into the middle of stuff to blow shit up. So if in the interviews I've done, a lot of the time they don't believe, they are probably not even anti-vaxxers. What they are doing is trying to upset someone, especially if you're in the public eyes. So in terms of that question that just came through about correcting misinformation, I would say, fine, if you're getting bombarded by anti-vax messages, fine, link back to some government information, some verified health information, but don't get involved in the to's and fro's, because actually the research is that they are sadists, so they want to hurt and upset you. So if you're kind of getting involved trying to change their mind, A, as Ash said, that's not going to work, and B, it's kind of feeding right into their sadism. I'm not saying don't talk back at all, but getting involved in those long conversations and inviting a pile on is no one's idea of a good time.
For sure.
Can I remind those to jump here? I was talking to Ben Lee about how he deals with this, for example, the other day, because obviously he's been very vocal in the last week with media, and what he does for this sort of centre group of very vocal ones, he said he simply blocks them. Because he said that they're not there to change their minds. It's not who the campaign is aimed at, because they're just there to disrupt, or you won't convince them anyway. So in his mind, they're disrupting the conversation. I would say that's what he does, but yeah.
I would say more mute them, because they can't see, because a lot of them they can't see, they just end up shouting into the ether. But just on Ben Lee with Guy Sebastian, some of the commentary there was not that great. And what I would say is also within the industry, which is a very broad church, if you're going to critique someone that someone else in the industry has said or done, play the ball, not the man. So I tweeted about Guy Sebastian, but I tweeted about the issue. I wasn't attacking him as a person. And I saw a lot of that. And I saw a lot of that within the industry that I found hugely disappointing. I mean, there is a troll in all of us. That's true. All of us get hit by the online disinhibition effect, where you can't see the person, you don't have a social contact, you think it's not going to hurt them. But, just think before you tweet, because there is a real person on the other end of it. And as Luke said at the beginning, like, COVID is very hard. A lot of you have lost a lot of your income. You're under huge pressure, homeschooling. Don't make someone else's life harder.
I guess too, the difference in this particular talk for us is around the vaccination, because on the one hand, we've lost all our work. On the other hand, we can't have lots of people in the one room. Anything that has more than 100 people, you feel like is never going to happen. We're getting different messages from the government about when we're going to open up, be it at 70, 80, 90%. We get to watch what's happening around the rest of the world. There's just so much going on that it looks like to me that it can be a personal choice as an artist that you choose to post the hashtag vaccination. But then if you are going to, then what are some things we can look at to minimize that backlash? And so we've had the suggestion of don't be the expert, you don't know, don't be the person who has to change that person's mind necessarily. But I also feel like it's been a way for people to say, it's been 18 months, and it'll probably be another 6 months until we're actually out there. And it's about looking actually towards what living with it is going to be like, because at some point or another, we will end up probably at a concert. We might get COVID. We might be covered or not covered by a vaccination. And that's going to be sort of the, what is it now, third chapter of how COVID is going along, I guess.
Can I just jump in really quickly, Julia? Just like I've, very proudly posted about the vaccination campaign, but just kind of to, talk on certain people who may be supporters of the vaccine, but not wanting to engage in posting the content. During this time, our social media accounts as artists are really our only means of marketing, and our only means of kind of telling people what we're doing and talking about our music and talking about our plans and trying to keep people engaged in our projects. Unfortunately, with the way that Instagram and Facebook and stuff is set up, the algorithm can be very fickle. And I can understand when artists are concerned about posting uniform content with a bunch of other people in their sort of like online sphere, that their algorithm may be compromised for that moving forward. And so I do understand reticence for artists who know, like an artist like myself, for example, who knows that their audience already kind of complies with wanting to be vaccinated. And the reticence to put out information that is just preaching to the converted or preaching to people who are already vaccinated, when their algorithm may be harmed for doing that, and then they may be compromised in their marketing moving forward during this time in which there's sort of no other way to kind of get the word out there. So I kind of do understand that, and but I also appreciate that it's very hard to stand up for messaging during this time when we're not at shows. Talking during shows is always really valuable, especially during festivals, getting a message out, doing kind of like performative, that there are ways to incorporate your values and your views in your performance, which is something that we don't have right now. So I do understand it, and I just thought that I'd put it out there.
Well, you're talking about something that I have no idea about, which is algorithms. That's the other thing. For me, I feel like when I touch anything with social media, I know I'm literally playing with seismic fire. Just like, who knows? Now, just to everybody watching, if you've got a question that you'd like to ask, please start chatting, putting that in the chat room, and we'll be able to ask them. Ash, what's next?
Well, I just wanted to also jump on the back of something that Ginger mentioned, which is, when we're engaging on issues, that we want to try to keep the conversation focused on the issue and not the person. And one thing that's really interesting, when you start to zoom back from social media and kind of just watch it play out, as opposed to being right in it, you can see that when someone is trying to get a rise out of you, they will go for you and go for aspects of that are sort of intrinsic to your self-worth. So in psychology, we know that people sort of, in order to have a nice and cohesive and stable sense of self-worth, need to believe that they are good, that they are free or autonomous to make their own decisions, and that they are smart or intelligent enough to be able to navigate their way through the world. So when you see trolls jump online, you will notice that they will go for one of those or all of them. So they'll jump on the autonomy train and they'll go, you're brainwashed, or you're being controlled by big pharma, and they'll try to make out like your choices aren't your own. And that hurts, yeah? That will sting your sense of self. They'll say you're bad, you're a bad person. Why are you trying to control other people? Why are you trying to, make people put poison in their bodies or whatever? They will make you feel like a bad person. They'll call you bad. Yeah. So, or they'll say you're an idiot, you're ignorant, you don't know the truth. So, trying to challenge that sense of being smart or intelligent. So when you kind of know those little nuggets, I guess, of the things that people are going to try to latch onto, it allows you to, I guess, be a little bit more able to step back from the reactivity that these types of comments create. So I've just created like a little a little step-by-step guide that you can use after you get something online that sort of triggers or activates you. So I'm gonna use the term rest here. So when you get a comment, I want you to take a rest. First up, you're going to recognize. You're going to recognize what feelings and sensations or thoughts are flooding your experience. So you really just want to kind of step back from being so in whatever's going on and seeing, okay, what's happening in my body? You know, has my heart rate gone up? Have I started to clench my jaw and my shoulders tense? You're likely to respond quite physiologically to this stuff. As we mentioned, you know, we will respond emotionally when we feel threatened, when we feel criticized or rejected. So you want to first notice, okay, how is this impacting me and my body right now? What thoughts are coming up? Is my mind very busy? From there, you're going to take a moment to exhale. So when we're really activated, we often forget to breathe. We will often sit there like this and not even take a breath. So after you're recognizing what's going on, I want you to take a deep breath in and exhale slowly to the count of 7. And this will help you regulate your emotional responses and also make some room so that you don't respond reactively. The next thing I would suggest is to step away. And this is just giving yourself a moment. I'm not saying, you know, block and delete comments and run away and don't face your online profiles ever again. I'm saying step away for a moment. Maybe give yourself 10 minutes. Take a moment to check in with yourself. What do I find important? Can I call a mate right now? Is there someone I want to talk to? Do I need to take a walk? You know, like just give yourself a little bit of extra breathing room. And then finally, you can tune back in mindfully. So then you can choose to respond or reply in a way that feels aligned and appropriate for you. So you're not reacting with that emotional surge. You're not getting into these nitty-gritty debates that are just going to suck your energy and vitality right out of you, debates that you're never going to win. They're just going to deplete you. And you've actually just taken a few steps to create some space and some like a bit of a cushion for yourself to be able to withstand a lot of this crazy content that's going to be coming at you.
Ginger, there's a question here about what bystander behaviour is. I know that's something you're
yes.
very into. How can you be a bystander?
Can I just jump in there and just back up what Ash was saying in terms of trolls go for your weakest point. It's business to them. So it feels really personal when they attack you, but it's not. They've just found out something about you that they know is going to hurt. And I just want to say reaching out to your real life support network is huge, like stepping away, because when you're online in the middle of those cyber hate events, it feels like the whole universe, but actually it's just a bunch of jerks who don't know you on the internet. And once you step away, you know, you realize that bystander behavior is huge. And I think this is where all of you in the industry can really help each other. So I've developed this technique and I will send Luke a link to the article I wrote about it. And the way that it works is essentially like upstanders in schoolyard bullying. So it's very hard to defend yourself on the internet. Usually you'll just end up with more attacks. But if somebody steps in and defends you politely, calmly, amplifies your voice, speaks back to the trolls, it actually has a huge impact. And since I developed this technique, I've done it for so many people. It's often women of color that are reaching out to me, but I will step right in there. I did it for Brittany Higgins when she was being massively trolled online. I step right in there and I say, this person is being trolled because of this. Let's make their voice bigger. Let's bring them more followers. And I tell people to mute the trolls, to report the trolls, and to politely talk back to them. So what it does is just gets this huge surge of support behind someone who's being attacked. And it is the most incredibly powerful tool you can imagine. It's just like what we teach our kids in the playground.
There's a question for you, Alex. The pressure on artists to share anything and everything on their artist accounts is higher than ever. While vulnerability in this sense is a great way to connect to fans, that same vulnerability can make for some pretty rough social media digs. How do you walk the line between being vulnerable and protecting yourself online? And do you have any tips on identifying what's okay to post and what might cause more harm than good.
Yeah,
I might ask you too, Mitch, as well. I might ask you to answer that question as well. Go on.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting and nuanced question. And I think it's also like a question that would have had a different answer 18 months ago than it does now.
Yes.
I think with everything like on social media, and also just like decisions as an artist is, you kind of need to ask yourself why you're doing it. And I think just like on social media in general, it's like, why am I posting this? The answer could be because it's fun. The answer could be because I have a record I need to plug. The answer could be because this brand's going to give me free shit if I do it. Like, you know, there's all sorts of answers for it. So like, to speak from my own experience, like when I posted my letter to the Prime Minister a couple of months ago or last month or whenever it was, my why wasn't because I thought I was going to get a response from the Prime Minister. My why was because I felt that there was an injustice happening and that there wasn't enough support from my community. And I'd been hearing that from my peers and colleagues and friends. And I just wanted to make some noise. And I thought that if I made some noise, then surely there's going to be more conversation. And then maybe it's going to actually lead to something, whether or not I actually get a response from Scott Morrison or not, which for the record, I still haven't and never will. But, you know, but it was sort of about that. And I think when you're really sure about why you're doing something and you can do it with that kind of conviction, you can sort of walk away from hitting send or post with feeling, I guess, like that you're in control of the situation in a way, and that it's not going to get away from you. Obviously, there's always going to be people who are just going to, you know, try to pick away at things. But I think as long as you can always come back and say, no, this is why I did it. And you know, you won't find yourself in a situation like, you know, poor Guy did, where maybe he wasn't quite sure of that. And then when he was getting a bit of heat from it, he kind of lost sight as to why he was doing it. And I think that when you can kind of stand by your convictions in that way, like I said, you can hit send and feel pretty confident that you can kind of take on what comes at you.
Mitch, what about you? How do you post things online that you want to share with people? You want to see, you know, there's a sense of wanting to be vulnerable, but then also looking after yourself, protecting yourself online when you're trying to share what you're doing.
Yeah, I think I just stay true to myself, stay true to, I suppose, often or not think about not so much speaking to the adult platform, but to the younger following, and how what I'm about to post right now may impact, you know, my 15-year-old former self, so to speak. Because, you know, I remember just being at 15 and being a sponge and just wanting answers about so many different things. And that's that. And even when I talk about the keyboard warrior thing, it's like, yeah, I've been through it and it's really affected me. But my concern is it's the 15-year-old kid that's still trying to navigate their identity that's going to go and hang himself after that comment, you know, and how we can combat that. So I think when coming back to the question, all I can do is stay true to myself, stay true to what I represent, and try and always bring it back to what I am about, and that's healing together in unity, whilst being honest about a lot of my journey and experience, and I guess remaining vulnerable. And it's a fine line, but I think for me, I just come back to my purpose, and I just feel free in doing it, you know. But it's interesting though, because, you know, we're here to be honest. But when it comes to the vaccine thing, I'm definitely speaking for myself, but I have spoke to other artists, and I feel like there's a real uncertainty, and it's not uncertainty. It's like not feeling safe to talk about it or to communicate about it. Like even now, I was like, wow, because I don't talk about it. When you asked me that question, immediately, I just felt so unsafe to even talk about it, because it's like, you feel like if you're not just going to come out and go, I'm on that campaign, go and get it, you're going to lose your livelihood, you know? And it's not just me that feels that. I had that conversation with a lot of people. It's like, even to come out and just go, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not going to advise you to do it, that's just my stance. However, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying I'm not going to go and tell you to do it because I'm not a qualified medical professional. You feel like, man, that's the end of the gigs, because there is such a heavy divide at the moment, and it's actually really scary. And I feel like, you know, for our industry, where, let's face it, it's not like for a lot of us, we are at the status of guy. This is really for a lot of us paying our bills, and not a mortgage, but rent. And the minute that we lose jobs, it's not just like, oh, you lose your profile. We're losing livelihood. We're losing the one thing that we love, but also the one thing that is supporting our family. So it's a really interesting time that we're in, because I feel like me posting and sharing about my life, as opposed to jumping on board this whole conversation around the vaccine, it's completely two different worlds at the moment because of the divide that's happened within the community. I mean, it's gone beyond a health thing now, and it's become such an epic political thing where it's not even a political thing with politicians. Everyone just jumps on board, and it's copy and paste this Google Doc, copy and paste this government doc, and we just go back and forward, and you lose followers, you gain followers, whatever. But it's just a big ball of toxicity at the moment. And like, I can only hope that we find some sort of unity moving forward, because it's like, the reality of humanity is we could be talking about a piece of grass, and we're not going to get 100 people to agree on the color of that piece of grass. You know what I mean? It's human nature. But, you know, it's a really interesting time, and it, you know, I'm not saying don't go out and post. I'm just saying it just doesn't feel safe. It's weird. And I don't mean safe someone's going to rock up and kill you. I just mean safe as in, you know, if I come out and talk about unity around this, what's going to happen to my career? And it's like, it's just me like giving examples, but I feel like there's a lot of people out there that don't feel safe, whether it's in the art industry or just in general, you know, because of the severe backlash and everything that's going on, you know.
But the internet is also not real life, in the sense of it's much more toxic and divisive online because of the types of people that behave like that. And also, you know, I mean,
for sure. And I mean, that's a great point, but for a lot of us, we get our work off the online platforms too. And it's like, and my question, I guess, is, it's like a real question. Like, you come out and talk about it, and where it's going now, it's like, if you're an event promoter or booker or whatever, are you going to book someone that's not driving it? And that's just, well, I'm just for pro-choice, you know, I'm not a medical professional. Like, you get it. That's awesome. You know, make your choice, make your informed choice, do your research. Or if you're someone that doesn't want it, great, that's your business. But from a business standpoint, and being a booker and someone in that world, are you still going to be open to booking someone that's just, you know, man, just for you living your life? And that's just the interesting point in time where we're at, you know.
Samantha,
and I'm just, you know.
Samantha, Mitch, thank you also for bringing it up, for asking the question, is it safe? Because I think that's at the crux of it. Is it safe to talk about it? Samantha, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I mean, especially Mitch, what you're just saying about, you know, artists feeling safe speaking out. One of the reasons why the industry groups behind this organisation, the Live Alliance, just to remind everyone, which is like ARIA, APRA, Frontier, TG, Secret Sounds, Live Nation. So one of the reasons why we wanted to go out with this campaign is because the reality is that so many artists, we make the money from touring. Most of people's income these days are coming from live performances. And the reality is that going forward with COVID, we're not going to be able to perform live unless we hit the vaccine 80% targets. There'll be no gigs. So we talk about feeling safe, how's my career? The bottom line is there won't be that income coming for anyone if we don't smash those targets. So the whole point of this campaign especially is that we're not going out saying to everyone, you all need to get vaccinated. Like, yes, we're saying please get vaccinated, but it's about informed consent choice. We acknowledge that some people actually just really can't, and also that people have to make their own decision, and they should do it with informed decision, talking to the GP. And that's something that I think a lot of media and artists maybe haven't been as clear about, especially the media. It's something that, bringing it back to Guy Sebastian, one of the things that he felt uncomfortable with was that he felt that, you know, but what about those people who really can't get vaccinated? There are some people. Well, we know that, and that's what the campaign is saying. We're not actually needing all Australians to get vaccinated. It's not possible. We just need the overwhelming majority, 80%, to go out and do it. I think also, if you're really, in terms of how feeling safe, I think that also it does feel very divisive, but stepping away from social media is really healthy, because the reality is it actually isn't that divisive an issue. The latest research from Melbourne University about vaccine hesitancy in Australia, they update it every 2 weeks, is that the hesitancy sort of sits around 20%, basically. So 80% of the country is completely on board with getting vaccinated. So it's really important to remember that it is only actually a small percent of people who are still thinking about this. There's about 11% of people saying no, they're not going to do it. And there's about 9% that are still.
And a lot of people attacking you online don't even believe it. They're just doing it to cause shit.
Yeah.
So they're not your fans. They are just predator trolls trying to stir stuff up.
I guess that's the stuff I still can't get my head around, Ginger, that people just do it for that. But Ash, let's go on to the final slide. And this is about also reporting abuse. So we'll talk to that. Ginger, I know you've got something to add about when do you report, and where do you report? And Alex, you also wanted to mention something about real life versus I'll get to you on that too. Yeah, so Ash.
So this is just the last little bit from me, and I think that I guess it's good coming off sort of what Mitch reflected on. Some conversations are just really difficult to have on online digital spaces. Things tend to slip into black and white category, and as a psychologist, we know that when we think about things in too binary a sense, that something is right or wrong, good or bad, black or white, it's not good for us, it's not good for our relationships, and it's not good for our understanding of the world. However, this is generally where these types of conversations go on digital spaces. They lack that nuance. So we really do need to find a sense of balance between our lives online and occupying digital spaces, and also returning to our embodied sense of self. So you need to ask yourself the question, are you investing disproportionately in your digital life? I understand that might feel like a savage question at the moment, because if you're in lockdown, if you're in Sydney, if you're in Melbourne, wherever you are, if you've been disconnected from friends and family, from your hobbies, from your work, from the things that bring you joy and connection, you probably are. Yeah, you're probably sitting there on your phone like I am for roughly 4 to 5 hours a day on the little screen, then watching the medium screen, and then tuning into the bigger screen. We're really, really overinvested in our digital lives, and this can take a toll on us. So yes, time spent online can be a meaningful investment in a community and presence that matters. And I would never, ever want to discount that. However, we need embodied connection too. And right now, this is where we're starving. If we're in lockdown, we have not gotten to have that embodied sense of connection, even if it's, just saying hi to the barista at the cafe, or bumping into someone at a bus stop and having a little chat. Like, a lot of those small interactions have been taken away, as well as the big important interactions. My husband's a full-time musician. He hasn't seen any of his mates in ages because he hasn't been able to gig for the last however long, so we're really starving in that sense. So this can be a little bit why we're feeling quite vulnerable at the moment. But I want to just sort of stop and ask, how can we develop resilience in our embodied life? And this will help us engage more healthily with tech and social media. So developing resilience means taking care of ourselves, taking care of our physical health, making sure you're getting sleep, making sure you're eating right, making sure you're moving your body, making sure you're connecting with the types of activities and hobbies that you love, that you can get better in. And those are things that we can do offline, and we can spend our time and energy in those spaces, which will help build us up and support us when we have to return to our phones and face the onslaught of what's coming. And finally, the issue isn't technology, but the way in which we engage it and set norms around its use. This is all going to be an individual choice. You've got to find what's going to work best for you. You've got to find that sense of balance. However, we live online and we need to live offline too, and we need to really find that sense of balance so that we can keep ourselves safe and doing what we need to do.
Thank you, Ash. Ginger, it's a funny line, when and where to report abuse.
It is. And look, just slightly zooming out, but the platforms, in terms of what Mitch was saying, the platforms don't keep us safe. So it's not surprising that we don't feel safe. And I would really love the music industry to be pressuring the platforms and pressuring government ministers in terms of having a duty of care to the public, and giving them less power. But the way the system is at the moment, you can obviously report to the platforms, but if you are feeling threatened, we are the only country in the world that has an online statutory body designed to protect people. The eSafety's office the remit has just expanded to protect adults as well. So if you go to esafety.gov.au, they actually have a place where you can report, and they have investigators. And I would say as well, if you find that threats against you are not just people saying Ginger's a shithead, I hate her work, they are sustained threats and they're credible threats of harm, please report to police as well, because it can be quite serious. Usually it's just abusive crap, but when you are starting to feel threatened and you feel that unease in your stomach and you're worrying about your own safety and the safety of your family, and it's ongoing from the same person, can you pay attention to that uneasy feeling and take action?
Hey, Ginger, I've got a question. Is that all right?
Oh, yeah. As long as we've got time, of course.
Yeah, no, because I'm interested with the police situation, because I've actually had to go to the police before.
Yes.
And because the person online didn't actually show their real name or picture or anything like that, it was basically void to even do anything. And even though it was so ongoing to the point of, I think they even found out where my mother lived. Like, it was full on. It went on and on and on. Like, I didn't just go. Like, it got to a really serious point. But they offered nothing. They offered no solution. And often or not, like a lot of keyboard warriors, they put up the fake name and whatever and go to town. So I'm really interested to hear your perspective.
So first of all, there is a federal criminal code, and under the criminal code, it is illegal to use a carriage service to menace and harass someone. So certainly as soon as your name and address and things like that are published online, that goes beyond your kind of bog standard abuse, and that is breaking that law. The problem with local police is they're completely patchy. So they're not trained and resourced to deal with it a lot of the time. And so you might go to the cop shop and have the experience you've had, or you might go to the cop shop and have a completely different experience. eSafety has inroads into all those big platforms, and they can find the big platforms, and they also have inroads to all the police services. So my suggestion, if you're not having joy with local police, is actually to do it through eSafety. But I also, if anybody is in a desk, this happens to me all the time, I actually have all the high up contacts of all the social media companies. So if you really need them, I will give them to you, because the platforms, all of your reports go offshore, and they're usually dealt with by kids in the Philippines, which is why they never breach the community standards. So it's really hard to find people onshore. So if you need them and you're in a desperate situation, I'm just a journalist. So I'm not a cop or anything, but I can help you with that, because I think that if you're being damaged online and threatened online, you should be able to contact someone in Australia and get help.
Ginger, good grief, you got some info. And she's like she's been a detective of some kind.
I just get the shits, Julie, because
people
get so desperate. Like, I'm sure Michelle Law wouldn't mind me telling you, like, she had the most full-on abuse against her, and she just kind of couldn't get help. And people come to me, and I'm like, God, how come we can't contact someone onshore,
Alex, a final comment with you about internet versus real life.
I feel bad about robbing Ginger of the final comment, because she was on fire just then.
I'm like combustible.
I will say that, like, I just kind of wanted to, my personal belief is that the days of thinking that the online world and the real world are two different things are very much long gone, in my opinion. It's one and the same. They're in unity with one another, and they feed off each other. We've seen elections be, determined by online movement and rhetoric, and we've seen all sorts of stuff kind of be swung off the back of online discourse. And to that end, like, it's so important in terms of how we interact online, because it does have ramifications in real life. I finished school in 2010, which isn't that long ago, and I wasn't privy to any sort of online etiquette kind of discussion or training or cyberbullying conversation, even in that sort of short amount of time ago. But I know for a fact now that it's a thing, and I think that that's fantastic, because, like I said, it's a part of our real world. I have found in my experience that people who are, you know, behaving badly online and sort of being bullies, are people of an older kind of ilk who do still believe that the online world and the real world are two different things, which kind of gives them, you know, a case to behave badly in the online world because it doesn't have any ramifications in the real world, which is not true. So I do think that there is some sort of duty of care by those tech companies, your Facebooks, your, you know, well, Instagram's owned by Facebook, but those bigger tech companies to, I guess, like educate people who maybe missed out on the opportunity to learn at school as to how to talk online. And if there's some sort of educational widget program or something like that that can be done to capture those people who are maybe left behind and are running the risk of behaving in a really bad way that that affect people. You know, just to kind of end on a positive note, because of the way that the online world and the real world are so connected at this time, if you want to support artists right now, the best way to do it is to actually just talk about it online. Like it's so wonderful to have to discover new music and for it to be our little secrets that we kind of like go in and out of when we want to listen to good shit. But the fact of the matter is, like, if there's something you're digging right now, just tell everyone about it, because that's the way that we're getting support at the moment. And it's really great to kind of strengthen discussion about our music and things that we're doing and get people on board. So especially when we go back to playing shows, that people are, you know, thirsty for it and ready to go.
Thank you. And also I would just add that I feel like the only contribution I can make online when I'm on social media is to try and interact in a respectful way, try and be constructive. And sometimes I might go, what do you mean? And try and keep it calm, because sometimes I will turn someone around and will say, no, that's not what I meant, or you didn't understand my tone, and it ends up they just want a kind of an interaction, and you sort out what it is within it. And I mean, you can't be doing that 24 hours a day, obviously. I want to thank you all so much on behalf of Support Act. Thank you so much to you all, to Alex, to Ash, to Mitch, to Ginger, to Sam, and thank you for watching. We haven't lost any followers, is that what you call them, participants. They've hung in there. I don't know what the words are anymore, everybody.
Obviously not that boring.
You know, I'd like to acknowledge the sponsors one more time, the Australian Government through the Office for the Arts and American Express Music Backers Program. And of course, just to reiterate, if this conversation has brought up anything for you, there are some options for you. Support Act Wellbeing Helpline number 1800 959 500 and Lifeline Australia 13 11 14. And of course, supportact.org.au, there's a lot more information there as well. And thank you for presenting some different sides. Thank you, Mitch, as well, for stepping up there and keeping that conversation going along the way. And thank you, everybody. Hang in there. I know New South Wales and Victoria are still locked up. Canberra for another 4 weeks. I'm locked up as well. But, you know, share those lovely things, share that music, and get each other talking about the thing, which is the stuff that you make, and that brings us, it's bringing us a lot of joy and a lot of sanity in this time. So thank you.